All right, let's open a case file from the art world that feels more like something out of a horror movie. We're going to be looking at a 17th century painting that makes you ask a pretty wild question. What if a masterpiece was never actually finished? And what if, for hundreds of years, it's been finishing itself? This is the incredible story of The Morning Room, a painting that seems to be, well, alive.
So the whole thing really blew up in 2018. A guard doing his morning rounds noticed something just impossible. In the painting, there's a vase. It was empty the day before, but that morning, it held a single red tulip. And get this, the oil paint was still wet. Security cameras showed absolutely nothing. No one went in, no one touched it, the flower just appeared. And that one incident cracked open a whole century of whispers and very strange reports.
So what is this painting we're talking about? The piece is called The Morning Room by a Dutch painter named Peter de Gogh the Younger. And at first glance, it looks like a typical, calm, domestic scene from that era. But as you're about to see, it is anything but calm. Think of this as the official evidence file on an artifact that shouldn't exist.
Now, what's so wild is that the tulip was just the latest in a long line of weirdness. The museum archives have photos going all the way back to the 1930s, and they show a really disturbing pattern. Sometime in the 70s, the woman in the painting started to slowly turn her head to face us. Then, boom, in 2008, a little dog just shows up next to her chair. In 2012, a whole new window pane appears in the background. And then in 2019, they finally caught something on camera. Just a single frame, a faint glowing line, like an invisible brush painting right onto the canvas.
And this, right here, shows you just how dramatic it is. On the left, a photograph from 1955. On the right, the painting today. It's undeniable. Her face has turned. A dog has just materialized. Her hand isn't resting anymore, it's slightly raised. And look on the floor. What used to be a child's toy has somehow transformed into a small mirror. These aren't restorations, folks. These are fundamental changes to the composition with no logical explanation.
Of course, the museum went into overdrive trying to find a rational explanation. They threw every single piece of scientific equipment and security tech they had at this thing. They were desperate to either debunk it or, just make it stop. But it was like the canvas was laughing at them, just defying every law of physics they tested.
And, they tried everything. They put vibration sensors behind it to catch a forger. Nothing. They sealed it in a state-of-the-art, climate-controlled case. The painting kept changing inside it. They even locked it away in a pitch-black, windowless room for 6 months. When they finally opened the door, the woman's face had turned even more. And the infrared scans, they were unbelievable. They showed multiple, evolving layers of paint underneath, like watching a time-lapse of a ghost painting over itself for centuries.
Okay, but here's the part that really breaks your brain. The chemical analysis of the new paint, the tulip, the dog, it confirmed two completely impossible things. One, the pigments are a perfect chemical match for the original 17th century oils. And two, they're fresh, still wet. The lead conservator's official report, and I'm quoting here, said, it's as if the canvas itself is generating new pigment from within.
So if the physical evidence is baffling, the human stories are, well, they're downright chilling. Over the years, plenty of staff members and visitors have reported things that suggest this is more than just wet paint. It's something aware. There was a night guard, Martin, who kept hearing these faint scratching noises coming from the gallery after it was locked for the night. One night, he finally got the nerve to open the door, and he swore he saw a paintbrush moving by itself, adding a little highlight to the woman's hair. The second he flicked on the lights, it stopped. He put in for a transfer the very next day. Can you blame him? And then there's this story from a woman named Elise who visited as a little girl. She said she was just staring at the painting, and the woman in it blinked. Just once. Her eyes closed, and they opened. She said she ran away and was too scared to tell anyone for years. And hers is just one of several similar stories from people who swear they saw it happen.
It got so weird, the museum actually, quietly, let a paranormal researcher in, a Dr. Ian Foster. He claimed he recorded audio of a child humming an old Dutch lullaby in the totally empty gallery. But here's the most stunning part. He tried to communicate. He stood in front of the painting and just asked, "Do you want to be left alone?" The next morning, the staff came in and found the woman's hand, which had been resting in her lap for centuries, had moved up to cover her face. It looked like a direct response.
So how did this all start? Where does a story like this even begin? To understand the what, you really have to dig into the why. And the why seems to be rooted in a tragedy from over 300 years ago, hidden away in the personal journal of the man who ordered the painting in the first place.
These are the words of the artist himself, Peter de Gogh the Younger, written down in that journal.
After the tragedy, the commissioner begged him to finish the painting, but the artist refused, writing this incredibly cryptic line, "It is not for me to add what she will provide herself." What in the world could that mean?
The journal tells the whole sad story. A rich merchant hired the artist to paint his wife and their young daughter in their favorite morning room. But before the painting was done, the little girl got sick with a fever and died very suddenly. The artist, completely grief-stricken, just couldn't bring himself to finish it. He abandoned the work, leaving it incomplete.
And this is where the historical record ends and the family legend begins. The merchant's family passed down this story for generations. They believed that because the portrait was unfinished, the spirit of the child who loved that room so much became attached to the canvas. The painting became a kind of vessel, and her spirit, well, it started to slowly finish the family portrait herself.
A touching ghost story, right? Maybe. But a ghost story doesn't really explain why now, after 300 years of very subtle changes, the activity is suddenly accelerating at a terrifying rate. It feels like the painting is rushing towards some kind of ending, and frankly, the museum staff is getting spooked.
Just look at this chart. It really shows you what's happening. Through the entire 20th century, changes were sporadic, a few every decade. Then, from 2000 to 2020, they became frequent. But in just the last 2 years, the changes are happening almost daily. This thing is evolving faster than they can even keep track of it.
And it's not just how often it's changing, it's what is changing. The woman's face, it doesn't look peaceful anymore. The curators say her expression now looks afraid. That toy on the floor is now a mirror. And here's the part that's truly unnerving. The reflection in the mirror, it's not the 17th century room. It reflects a modern room. And some people who look really, really closely swear they can see a figure standing in that reflection, looking back at them.
If you need any more proof that this is real, look at the museum's response. Gallery 3, where the painting hangs, now closes to the public every single day at 4 p.m. sharp. The official reason is conservation efforts, but the staff all know the real reason. They're trying to limit what they call after-dark activity, because whatever is happening, it happens fastest when nobody is there to watch.
So, all of this leaves us with some pretty profound questions. The first and most obvious one, is the family legend true? Are we watching the ghost of a little girl who's just trying to finish the portrait of her family 300 years later? Or is it something else? Could this be a totally new definition of art? A living piece that continues to create itself, evolving with the world long after the artist has died. And then there's the last possibility, the one that's the most unsettling. With that mirror reflecting a modern room, we have to ask, is it really the child's spirit? Or is something else entirely using this old canvas as a kind of window, a way to look through from its world into ours? Ultimately, the question that no one can answer, the one that keeps the curators up at night, is this. If a painting really can create itself, what is it trying to become? And maybe the scarier question is, when it's finally done, will it still let us look at it?
You can still go see the morning room today, but you have to be out of the gallery by 4 o'clock, because after that, the doors are locked and the painting gets back to work, all alone in the dark.